Folks, welcome in. We have made it. We are doing a live episode today. This is something that Tyson and I don't really do a whole lot of, but we figured, this is one of our favorite days of the year. I think if you're watching this, this is probably one of your favorite days of the year. If you're a big college basketball nut like we are, Selection Sunday has arrived, Tyson. All the conference tournaments are done. We are just waiting for this event to start. So we got roughly 10 minutes. If you're joining us late, welcome in. We're going to go through our reactions as we're seeing it come on the screen. So if you're listening after the fact in podcast form, if you're finding us on YouTube, we appreciate that. And let us know what you think about what we're going on. We're going to do some preliminary breakdowns and get into some more diving into the actual bracket later in the coming week. But Tyson, it was a long season, but here we are, man.
Yeah, we have no idea how to do this either, so let us know how the live format looks. This is for Dusty May. This is why we had to come on 10 minutes early so Brad could tell all of you how proud he is of Dusty May, how excited he is to bet on Michigan basketball in March.
The funny thing is, I was like, no way either of these teams in the Big Ten, Wisconsin or Michigan, they're not going to win. Both of them, of course, are in the chipper, which is hilarious. Dusty May's done a really good job at Michigan and first coach to ever win the Big Ten tournament in their first season on the job. So he gave you a big middle finger, which is great. He's a great coach. We loved him at FAU, and Tyson and I were on board with that run when it happened. And so can they do it again this year? We'll see. They've won a lot of close games. I think maybe the variance comes and catches up with them, but that'll be something we get into once this bracket gets revealed. But Tyson, obviously there's a ton of stuff that goes on during conference week as we wait for the reveal coming up here. What do you think of the tournaments overall? I didn't think there was very many bid stealers this year, but what do you think of everything as it unfolded?
It was good basketball. The SEC tournament today was fun to watch because was it 140 fouls in the first 30 minutes of that game, and then they were allowed to do whatever they wanted to close. But it was awesome. We had Florida there, so that felt good. But Brad, the best tournament of this whole thing was Starch Madness, baby. It was the Big Sky Conference basketball tournament where the Montana Grizzlies will be representing the Big Sky Conference in March Madness.
Yeah, and you got the hat on. That was great. And I was texting you, and I hadn't been able to follow them a ton this year. And, of course, I jumped on board at the right time like we all do in March. And I like that team. I hope they do it. Tyson and I are both from Missoula, so we got to support the Grizz. Tyson still lives there, and so he's got a connection to the Grizz. It should be a fun team, man. Depending on their draw, I got to admit, they got some guys who can get some buckets. So keep that in mind. But what we're going to do, if you're just jumping in, we're waiting. We got about 6 minutes until this Selection Sunday gets underway. So as the bracket gets revealed, we're going to go through everything, give our preliminary thoughts with you. So if you got questions or if you want to know we want to know what your thoughts are, drop a comment. Maybe we'll get to it at the end. Maybe we'll get to it in real time. But this is going to be something on the surface as we roll into March Madness before we do our big preview. Tyson, for me, I was staying up late in a lot of these conferences on the West Coast. Now I'm out here, it's a little bit easier than when I'm on the East Coast. But, the Big West was fascinating. I thought the WAC was good. Grand Canyon gets in it again. Bryce Drew is a fantastic coach. I can't believe nobody's given him a call at some of these higher end major programs. But I think we could potentially see, I know we see it every year, but, the 14s knocking off the 3s, maybe even some 15s knocking off the 2s. I think the NIL and the transfer portal is kind of even the playing field. I think we could see that this year.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see kind of how this whole thing shakes out. There's 8 teams that probably feel like they have a case for a number 1 seed going in here. So we're going to have some really good 2s this year, but it's become more and more of a thing. Plus Yale got in the tournament again, and that's their specialty there. They might be a 15 playing a 2. Brad, who is one bubble team before we get in here that you just can't see make this thing?
Well, North Carolina should.
It's got to be.
If they get in, apparently their president or something is on this committee. So if they get in, Tyson, let's just stop with all the nonsense. 1-12 against quad 1 opponents. Give me a break.
And the 12 losses, most of those weren't very good either. What do you think about if Boise State gets in? Are you gonna be mad?
No, they made the Mountain West final. I know they got blown out a little bit, but the problem with the Mountain West to me, Tyson, is we always talk about, this league is so competitive. But yeah, competitive against each other. Then they always dump down their leg whenever it gets to the tournament. So it's tough to go on here and be like, no, they should be in. They've had a good one. I think Boise State at least would be fun in the tournament, though. They play defense. They got some guys who can score, and really that's what you're looking for, this sort of thing. So I wouldn't be mad if Boise State got it. Now, Ohio State, if they get in, Tyson, it's like why are we trying to put these teams in? Let's go to some of these other mid-major conferences. You know what I'm saying? And same with Indiana. That's how I feel about them too.
Yeah, you just any Big Ten shot Brad can throw right now, somebody's catching it. I agree with both those things, but with the flag behind you, it's always fun to hear a little Ohio State hate out of you. But I think like the bubble thing is going to be fun no matter what. And I'm interested in remember when like the first four original and VCU makes a run, and then we have a team from that group every year making a run. It's kind of died down a little bit, but let's see who they throw there in some of these things. Some of these teams can shoot the lights out, dude. If you get an extra game, get your feet right and all that stuff, you can be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're just kind of going through here, we're waiting for Selection Sunday again, folks. Kind of like another lead in. If you're just joining us, what we're going to do is react as it's coming on your TV, and first time we're seeing it. So if you're in here live with us, you're getting our honest reactions before we dive in and do our actual analysis later in the week as we release different previews of the brackets and the regions. So Tyson, I'm thinking about this. Every single year, everybody talks about, oh, the ACC sucks. Like that's been the running thing for like the past 3 years. And the ACC always makes a run, and it's the Big Ten who just, so good, or the Big 12. Oh, now it's the SEC this year. I got a sneaking suspicion that we're going to see the same thing. Louisville, Clemson, and Duke are set up to make runs. And the SEC is good, but Tennessee can't necessarily score. I think Florida, and we'll get into it once this bracket comes in. Auburn's kind of dropped a few again. It's against the SEC. Bama, they give up 1,000,000 points, so they can get beat. I mean, are we just in for another letdown from these are the best conferences and the ACC sucks, and they're the ones who go on the run?
Well, it's with the ACC. I mean, when Duke's on, they should walk to the Final Four. I don't think I need to see their path to be able to say that. But Louisville's going to struggle with teams who have depth and who are big, and we saw that today or yesterday or whatever, and throughout the season. And the SEC, dude, some of these teams are so good. It's going to depend on matchups and everything. Like if Tennessee holds somebody that you've never heard of, a 14 seed to 35 points in the first round, you're going to be thinking that's normal, right? But I mean, Auburn dropping 2 in a row here to end their season before the tournament. I think I saw something. Nobody's ever made a Final Four after dropping 2 in a row to end the year.
Yeah, Jay Williams putting something out. I think they've dropped 3 out of 4, and he said no teams won a championship on that, doing that as well, which is something to note. Now, everybody's talking about, is Auburn the best team? It's just a generational team based on how they were doing in the regular season, and it kind of fizzled out. There's a real concern I have with Auburn did they peak too early. Tyson, it's an older team. It's an established team. We know Bruce Pearl gets the most out of his guys. Is that really, did we see the peak? Florida looks like they're peaking to me, man. That team looks really good guards, really good bigs, and you can play defense, score on anybody. I mean, that's the scary thing about them. The defense still, I want to see a little bit more. They got shredded up a little bit, but they can flat out score on anybody. I released this on my X account, Tyson. I said I think Duke should be the number 1 overall seed. I think Florida should be number 2, then Houston, then Auburn. I know people will get some hate for that, or give me some hate for that because it's an all-around thing. But I think if we're talking about who are the best teams in the country right now, I have Duke 1, I have Florida 2, Houston 3, Auburn 4. Are you pushing back a little bit on that, or you see where I'm coming from?
I mean, we'll see. That's what I was saying kind of at the top, is that 4th overall seed kind of feels like it could go to a handful of different teams. So having Auburn there, nearly, or they were number 1 for the majority of the season. It was passed around like a hot potato quite a bit, but they had their hands on it for quite a while. I wouldn't be upset with that. They have, maybe not the national player of the year, but at least the top 2 guy. They got a really good team, but we'll find out here. And I think it's starting.
Yeah, it's about 1. Yeah, but here it is now, Tyson. So as we kind of roll in here, we'll see what happens as it unfolds on the TV screen in front of us. I know it kind of everything comes down to matchups and how the bracket gets laid out. But are there any mid-majors that you're circling and you're like, oh, these guys are going to make a run?
It's hard right now. Do you have anybody off the top of your head? I'm trying to think.
Well, I mean, everybody loves UC San Diego. I mean, that team is sick. It's a fun story.
Under the radar.
Akron?
Also, what do we define a mid-major at anymore?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll just throw a couple out here. I think Akron can score on anybody. They got a guy who's a coach at Illinois for a little bit. And so, I think they run some sets. Maybe it's only good enough to beat the MAC, and it's hard to compete on that front. But still, I think Akron could potentially get somebody. Drake, again, is somebody I have circled. Their coach is a flat winner from the D2 level, and he brought some people up. So that's somebody to note. And then honestly, Tyson, besides that, I think it's going to come down to matchups. Like maybe American can give somebody a game. McNeese, of course, Will Wade. They got athletes that was their darling last year. They dropped the first one. Maybe they do it this year. So there are a few. I think they can give a few games in this one.
My sister goes to UNC Wilmington right now, so that's kind of like where my heart is. That would be my number one team. They come out, they win the CAA. They're not supposed to. I think they were the number 2 seed in the conference tournament there, and so yeah, let's rock with it. I don't even know the mascot.
It's something good, like the Pelicans or something, like that. But if you guys are just joining us and you're just waiting, we are looking at the Selection Sunday screen. I mean, these guys are just as pumped as us, honestly. Like they're sitting at the desk because they're ready to talk about some ball. But we're waiting for the selection show. One, I want to say it's just not the same without Greg Gumbel. I mean, the guy is just a flat out legend. It's just sad, rest in peace. Man, he's just been a part of so many moments. Going to miss him, Chuck, Clark, and Kenny messing around up on the set. But so rest in peace, Greg Gumbel. Tyson, I think they're getting into it, man. So again, if you're just joining us, as it comes out, we're going to go through and give our thoughts. We're going to break down things later in the week. I'm curious to see how many bids each conference gets, Tyson. I think, the SEC, maybe they get 14, 13 seems like the number. Big 12 looks like they're going to have a few. I think the ACC only gets 3. So how they disperse the rest of the at-larges will be interesting.
What a weird conference tournament for the Big 12.
Yeah. I mean, Arizona goes on the run. That's one thing I could hang my hat on. I said maybe Arizona, of course. The Big Ten makes me look stupid. I thought I was spot on in pretty much everything else. But, oh, man. Houston, so that was their first conference championship in the tournament. I mean, they joined 2 years ago, but they've just been dominating that conference. Remember, everybody's like, oh, they're dominating the American. What if they jump into an actual conference? Well, Kelvin Sampson just is like, yeah, we're just going to blow towards the Big 12. It doesn't matter to us.
Just BTA, and there you go, sir. Auburn with the 1 seed in the South.
Okay, so it seems like they're the number 1 overall seed. St. Francis, Alabama State, they're going to play in the first 4. St. Francis is an interesting team, Tyson. I got to admit. I mean, a lot of people's darlings. Good coach there. He played, so he kind of knows the culture there. So that'll be an interesting one to see.
I don't think they have anybody that can guard Janai Broom, so that hurts.
I would tend to agree with there. Louisville looks like they get an 8 seed in the South, Tyson. That's interesting. That's in Lexington, Kentucky. They'll have a lot of crowd support on that front, and they're going to face Creighton. Ooh, that should be fun.
What's the
Creighton has
over-under?
surprised us a little bit, right, with their run to the Big East final.
What is the over/under point total in that game?
Oh, it's going to be 1 million. I mean, that's going to be a fun one.
Unless it starts with a 2, folks. I think you might be safe.
The Big Ten champ Michigan Wolverines pulled a 5 seed in the South. They're going to start out in Denver. That's a little lower than I thought, Tyson. I mean, is this a classic Selection Sunday thing? Oh, we already got our bracket in.
Yeah, they had whoever won the Big Ten was getting the 5 seed. It didn't matter how you did it.
They're going to face the 12 seed out in Denver, Colorado. UC San Diego. I literally called it, didn't I? That's a bet right now. UC San Diego is going to beat Michigan. You can lock this up. I literally was texting Tyson, hey, if they give them UC San Diego, I thought it was going to be the 3 and the 14. That's some respect for UC San Diego getting the 12 seed, Tyson. A lot of people thought it was going to be the 14. But just go ahead and pencil this in. We're going to go over this. UC San Diego advances. They're going to face the winner of Texas A&M, who drew the 4 in the South region, and we're going to see who 13 is here. Oh, man. I can't believe
what a day for you. What a call.
Yale. Okay, so Yale A&M. Tyson, in the past, we've seen 12-13 matchups. Is there a possibility here?
Well, when I asked what the over/under in Louisville Creighton was, like as a joke, I asked it in the other way in the A&M Yale game. Like this is going to be ugly basketball.
Okay, we're going to see here. So 6 is Ole Miss. They're going to start in Milwaukee. This is the South region still. That's an interesting seed line. They'll face the winner of San Diego State, North Carolina. North Carolina got in. Oh, my God. Okay, we're going to have to see who is snubbed. Wait for the end here. This is a complete joke.
Oh, my. I mean,
this is a complete joke.
So, what? They could have gone 0-13 if they made the tournament probably against Quad 1 then.
Just because they're North Carolina, they're in. I mean, this is a travesty. I'm rooting for San Diego State hard. I'm a Duke fan, but come on, this is ridiculous. Iowa State gets the 3.
Ooh, wow. That feels
Lipscomb.
That feels like a lot of respect for who they are when they're healthy.
I know. I didn't think they had a great showing in the Big 12 tournament. That Lipscomb team, we'll see. Tyson, fun. Can they hang with Ohio State defensively? We'll see. Marquette, New Mexico in the 7-10 in the South. That's an interesting one. We talk about Marquette always like seeing the lay and egg a little bit. With that 7 seed, though, facing a Mountain West team, is this actually the best thing for them?
That's true. I mean, they're facing a program who knows nothing but laying eggs. Remember how long it took New Mexico to like win a game? They were everyone's darling every year.
Every year. And then, well, maybe this one's good for them, too, because they're going to face Marquette. So we'll see what happens. Cam Jones is a stud. Michigan State draws a 2 in the South, Tyson. So let's start in Cleveland. That's good for them. They're going to have a lot of crowd support, and they're going to face off against Bryant with 15 seed. That could be a fireworks show. I mean, Bryant can flat out score.
Yeah, and Michigan State can't shoot. And so that kind of like that could be a recipe for disaster. Bryant makes 5 threes in a row. Michigan State can't match.
That would be something else. Okay, so the South region, interesting. I got to say, Auburn plays the winner of Creighton.
Bro, they better win this. They better win this region. With the
I
way
think
this
if
just
you're
set
Auburn,
up,
go ahead.
the way this just set up, like if Iowa State and like Michigan State, like they can't beat you if you're the number 1 overall seed. If you have these guys, if you've been this team all season long, like this would be a disappointment, I think, if Auburn doesn't go to the Final Four.
I would agree with that. This seems like a nice soft region.
And things happen. But I mean, dude, they better at least walk to the Sweet 16. Those first 2 games look like they should be pretty good for Bruce Pearl's bunch.
I would say that you're really hoping that Louisville gets past Creighton. Because, I mean, I know we kind of have our differences with Ryan Kalkbrenner, but at least he could provide some stuff at the rim. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the guys on Fox before the Big East Championship get called comparing him to Tim Duncan, for Christ's sake.
That was a bit much, but I like Kalkbrenner too. He might finally get put through the basket. I mean, the shot blocking's been down this season. It's not been the same defense out there for Creighton, and if he finds himself in the wrong spot against that front line,
yeah, we'll see what happens, especially with the guards too. I mean, it looked like Stephen Ashworth. He was having to run around a ton in the Big East tournament. Ran out of gas in the chipper. That whole team kind of did. It's always a short bench, right, for Creighton. I mean, that's kind of the issue there. But the South is interesting. I'm with you. I think we're going to go through the game-by-game stuff again coming out later in the week when we really dive into this stuff. I think on the surface, when I'm just first reveal, first thoughts, should be a fun one. I think there's potential for upsets. I think the UC San Diego, Michigan thing is awesome. That's just a classic recipe for an upset there. Michigan's played so many close games, Tyson. Well, again, we'll get into this further. I'm surprised that Michigan State was in with Auburn. I'm curious to see kind of how the final seeding goes on this, but Michigan State paired with one of the top, or it seems like the first overall seed in Auburn. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I think they are the top overall seed. But dude, we can North Carolina made the tournament. We'll talk about Michigan State later in another episode or something. But this can be the space where we can say, what the hell? Like, how did this happen?
Before we let in. We're talking 1 in 12 in freaking quad 1 games. Apparently, that's the metric that matters, right? That's you're playing with tournament teams. How they're allowed to do that and get into the tournament? I don't care. Like last 4 in, they have to go play. It's a complete sham. It's a farce. And
everyone says the ACC sucks.
Right. It's ridiculous. I mean, this brand name, Tyson. And then we'll talk about this maybe at a different time. But this is one of the reasons why I'm against expanding the tournament. If you're not going to include some of these other mid majors. Like, this shouldn't be, North Carolina sucked, but we still want to get them into the tournament. It should be like, no, the good mid-major team got beat in the championship game of their conference tournament. Now they should be actually getting an opportunity to be in the tournament at an at-large bid instead of North Carolina went 500 this season, but we want them in because they're North Carolina. Like, that's where I'm pushing back on this.
I agree. Or those should be the plans. That if you win 30 games in your regular season, you lose in the conference tournament in the American, and then North Carolina goes 1 in 12 in quad 1 games. You guys score off for a spot to be in the tournament. We don't need Indiana versus another disappointing team from the Power 5. I've seen them play all these teams before. I've seen how it goes. That being said, dude, they're making the Elite Eight, and it's gonna make us so mad.
Well, so that's I'm looking at it here, right, Tyson? Because you said before the start. Well, remember when VCU went on the run and we talked about these other teams? Is North Carolina not set up to do the exact same thing here? So let's say they get past San Diego State. Now, I think it is going to be tough for them on that game. I mean, just defensively, San Diego State can throw different things in North Carolina. But then you play Ole Miss. That's going to be a complete track meet. If that's the matchup, that's going to be a smash over game. I don't care if it's set at 180. And then if you go out and play, we expect Iowa State to get past Lipscomb. Boy, North Carolina, Iowa State. Is that not can you just picture like Iowa State and Altenberger losing to North Carolina? That's so classic.
Oh, that would make me so mad. Yeah, they're all like all three of them are finally healthy. Everything's rolling right for Iowa State. They beat Lipscomb by 140 points in the first round, and then they get everybody on the team gets 3 fouls within the first 2 minutes of the game. That's how that works.
Right. That exactly. So that's the South region. Again, Tyson, I don't want to talk about too much like, what's Louisville Creighton going to look like? You know, I've already picked UC San Diego to beat Michigan, but that's a principal pick. Yale, Texas A&M. We'll go through all this stuff later in the week. This is just our instant live reaction stuff. We have the rest of the stuff coming out on the bracket here in the selection shows we're going to go to. And Duke in the East region, as expected, is the number 1 overall seed. They're going to start in Raleigh, North Carolina. Tyson, I'm curious who's going to be the second seed in that one. I think Duke might have got screwed a little bit with these teams. We'll see. But Cooper Flagg back in action. They're going to face the winner of a playing game, American or Mount St. Mary's. The American angle would be interesting, I got to say.
It would be fun, I think, but Duke doesn't feel like Purdue to me.
No, I don't think so either. The 8th seed in Raleigh, Mississippi State. Okay. We'll see who they draw here. I thought they had an interesting little turnaround season, did the Rebs, Tyson.
It was, I mean, that's why the SEC is so funny to talk about, because people are like, almost like forgetting how poor some of these teams were a year ago and just discrediting like the improvement they had in order to champion the conference.
Yeah, the Mississippi State, they'll face Baylor. Oh, my God. Of course, Duke-Baylor potential matchup in the next round. Oh, my goodness. Oregon gets the 5 seed, so they're going to be out in Seattle, Washington. Good poll for them. Liberty, the 12. That's an interesting matchup there.
Oh.
That is a really good mid-major program.
And these are two fan bases who have grown to hate each other. So this is perfect.
Yeah, maybe the basketball team gets some revenge for the football team. Arizona staying out west, the 4 seed in the East region. They're going to stay out in Seattle. That's a pretty good poll for them. I don't think if you're Duke and you were talking about the vulnerability that they should be concerned, especially because Akron could – I mean, you want to talk about a game that's going to go over the number. Oh, my God.
And on the one hand, I want to see Akron play as much basketball as I can throughout this tournament. On the other one, like I kind of want another Caleb Love run. Like I think that sounds fun. That's tough.
BYU pulls the 6th seed in the East. Tyson, I got to admit, that's pretty scary for Duke. Yeah, BYU can score on anybody, and they're big, they're long.
They might score 100.
They face in the 11th seed. Let's see who it is. VCU. Boy, this VCU team's good. I like Ryan Odom a lot. I mean, he's a really good head coach. Tyson, that's going to be a good game, I think. That could be the best game on Thursday, I got to say.
I think they're juicing the East region here, brother. These are a lot of really good teams in here.
I know. I told you. I think Duke's going to get screwed, man. They put in North Carolina, so now they got to pay the piper on another ACC team. Yeah, because they threw Wisconsin and at the 3 seed here. Not that I think Wisconsin's necessarily a great team. I do think they have some flaws. I mean, we saw it today. They can't shoot. That Tanji kid can fill it up, though.
Oh, dude.
But, man, that's the 3 seed in here. Come on, guys.
And Michigan with the 5. That's interesting, too.
Oh, and they pull our boys, Montana.
Yes. This is Austin Patterson is locking Tanji down. He's probably not going to score a point. Money Williams, 30 ball. The Grizzlies beat VCU and march to the Sweet 16.
That'd be sick. I'm rooting for it. That's the path. That's what we want here. That's 2 Montana boys. Would love Montana. Coach Travis, great guy. Mount St. Mary's draws a 7. It's kind of a fall from grace for Mount St. Mary's, and they pull Vanderbilt, who gets an at-large, who can score. That'll be an interesting game. Can they literally 2 contrasting styles? St. Mary's going to want to control their pace. Vanderbilt wants to get up and down. That should be a fun game, especially in Cleveland. Kind of in between on both of them there, Tyson. Vanderbilt should have a little bit more guys. I mean, they're closer to Nashville, of course, but that's an interesting matchup there in the East.
That's at least the second bubble team to get in. Vanderbilt, North Carolina, and then Bama as the 2. This is going to be the highest scoring region in the history of the tournament.
It might be. That's so. I think the injury to our guy, what's his name? God, I'm drawing a blank here. The tall white kid.
Oh, Grant.
Not Grant Foster. He's from Grand Canyon. I'm drawing a blank, but he got injured, and I think that's a big thing here. But Tyson, this East region, I think if you're Duke, you're a little upset. I mean, to win the ACC regular season tournament and the tournament, or the regular season and the tournament, and doing the latter of the two without Cooper Flagg, and you get rewarded with this, that's a little frustrating, I think.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State Baylor, I think you can be scared on the surface of Baylor especially, but I'm looking more towards that bottom quadrant. I think Oregon's a really good team, and I think Arizona has the juice to be able to score a bunch of points if they get by Akron, which is a funny thing to say in a 13-4 matchup. But like Oregon they are what we sometimes say Michigan State is. Like, it's March. It might just be a time when Oregon goes to the Elite Eight, and Duke is just in the way.
Yeah, that would just be frustrating, especially because that would happen, when Dylan Brooks was on Oregon.
Yep. Him and Coach K loved each other. That was great.
Alabama, Robert Morris in the bottom. That's interesting. I think Alabama, I'm looking this up. Bama's injury, Tyson. I think that's a big thing, because I think, if that's going to be your second best team in the region, right? Your two, and Alabama's missing a guy. I do think that does favor Duke a little bit.
What do you think about St. Mary's getting a 7?
Grant Nelson. Jesus. Couldn't think of that. I think it's a little disrespectful. I mean, I thought they had a good season. They go 2-0 against Gonzaga, lose in the championship game. That's tough. But, we've always seen, I mean, the WAC, it's not, or I guess it's what are they out there? The WCC, right?
West Coast Conference.
Yeah. It's not necessarily one that you can really hold your hat on. I mean, when Golden, the coach currently at Florida, was at San Francisco, I thought it was a little bit better than it is now, but it's really just Gonzaga and St. Mary's. And then if they can't make a run, it's kind of like lackluster, Yeah,
it's interesting to me that we still kind of give that conference so much love. Like, I think a 7 feels right for a second place team in a conference that doesn't win any games outside of these two. And it's worse this year than it's been.
So I'm looking here, Tyson. So there's only one other play-in game remaining. So one region isn't going to have a play-in game.
Okay.
Because
that must have been the East then.
Because the East has one, because it's going to be Duke's going to have the play-in winner of American and Mount St. Mary's, and then the South has 2, because you get Auburn, number 1 overall seed, they get the play-in game, and then Ole Miss gets to face the play-in game of North Carolina, San Diego State. That's kind of strange, don't you think?
I mean, I guess it's there's so much stuff above our head that's like they're doing this for some sort of money reasons that we don't quite understand. But I think that the East seems pretty juicy.
I know.
It's a juxtaposition for me because before we started, I said I thought Duke should be able to walk to the Final Four if they're on. I still feel that way. I think, there's a couple teams in the country that can get them, but they're going to be the other 1 seeds. But there's a lot of teams that can put the ball in the hoop out here. And we've seen it so many times in March. Like, if you can keep a game close and then all of a sudden avalanche somebody, and Duke's a good shooting team. They haven't, can they be great with some of these other teams that have maintained these 40% clips for a while?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it depends on what basketball they're playing with. I don't know what they're going to be playing with in the region or what the tournament plays with, but when they get the Nike balls, they're sick at home. Anything but Spalding, I guess, is what Duke X or Duke Twitter is saying now, because they just cannot shoot with those balls. So it'll be interesting. Duke, if they play Baylor, our guy Jeremy Roach now at Baylor, that's an interesting little revenge angle. Of course, we talked about the Oregon thing. That could potentially be an Elite Eight rematch with Arizona. Duke went to Arizona and beat them earlier in the year, but that was when they were still figuring themselves out. This Arizona team, I think, is better now for sure.
The whole Caleb Love angle is fascinating for that too. Imagine he gets it again.
Oh God, I'd be so pissed.
I think you'd have to block that guy from your memory. Something, all you Duke fans would have to burn sage or something every time that his name was mentioned.
So I think this is interesting too. If Vandy gets past St. Mary's, they'd have an SEC matchup immediately with Bama in the second round. I mean, depending on how many we'll see how many SEC teams get in. But that's interesting that it's just an immediate one there, because I do think they kind of spaced out the rest as best as they could. So I'm curious to see how the rest of everything shakes out.
Well, that might just mean that they are going to get to that, 13 number, because we're going to have these. There's only so many spots. You're going to have to play somebody in the second round. Sometimes they're fun. Sometimes they suck. This one feels like maybe Bama has them figured out. They've had them figured out, and they're going to be fine.
One of the things too, Tyson, is where as I'm looking at the East and the South here, there hasn't been a ton of upsets really in college basketball in the past few tournaments. And I'm trying to talk myself into some. I'm looking. I already said UC San Diego's beating Michigan. Can Yale stick with A&M? Oh, what about Liberty's really good? Akron. Oh, they can upset Arizona, and it's like, yeah, but then they're just going to get the boots to them. It's going to be shock like it's been the last 2 years. So I'm trying to temper my stuff here.
That's how it works. I recommend everybody make a chalk bracket on whatever bracket thing you do. It's going to end up better off than you think. You'll be worse in the first 2 days than everybody else, and then you'll look at it at the end and go, "Oh, it's 80% right when I just picked the higher seed every time."
Right, that's what you want here. Okay, we're back in action here on Selection Sunday. Houston gets the number 1 seed as expected in the Midwest region. They're going to start in Wichita, Kansas. Yeah, so it's okay. So they're probably the 3rd overall seed as we look here. I mean,
yeah,
that's not too surprising. A lot of resume stuff here. They're going to play SIUE. Wow. First time ever they're in the tournament.
I thought that they were going to be one of the 16s to get a play in.
Yeah, I wonder how they figure that out. I'm curious. Maybe I should do some research and figure that out. But I'm always fascinated about that. Gonzaga gets an 8 seed. Okay, so yeah, WCC really committee said you guys suck this year. So they get how classic would it be for Gonzaga to upset Houston if they get past their 9 matchup.
Oh, dude, they would get bullied so hard in that game.
That's what we say, but it's not like Houston's like some juggernaut in the tournament. They're susceptible.
Neither is Gonzaga though, bro.
That's a good point. But they got the longest active Sweet 16 streak.
That's true. I mean, maybe, Calvin and the boys are in trouble. Georgia.
Oh, boy. I'm trying to think that there might be 1 million points scored in that Gonzaga-Georgia game.
That's super interesting to me that they get a 9. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but Clemson with a 5?
Clemson with a 5. They're going to stay out east. Providence, Rhode Island here in the Midwest region. Okay. I think that's fair. Now, Dylan Hunter broke his hand. I think that's something to note. They faced McNeese. You want to talk about the darling 12-5 matchup. People are going to pick McNeese. Now, Clemson's been a good team. They had that magical run last year, Tyson. Can they do it again? We'll see. McNeese, this could be their year, though.
It could be. I feel like a lot of people are jaded on them because it was supposed to be McNeese's year a year ago.
Right. Purdue, the 4. They're going to face High Point, the 13. Woo, boy. Without Edey, I mean, this Purdue team is gettable. We saw it in the Big Ten tournament. I thought maybe they can kind of all put it together. Their interior defense is atrocious. So if High Point can get into the paint, and again, we're going to go over some stuff and really analyze this thing before we come out and give our bracket predictions. That's something I'm keeping an eye on there.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm waiting. I want to see where they're going to throw St. John's.
I think, maybe in this one. Well, it's in Lexington. I don't know about that, but
no.
Illinois gets a 6. They're going to face the winner. There's the other playing game, Texas Xavier. So Xavier gets on the bubble. So Ohio State seemingly in Indiana are out.
I didn't think that North Carolina or Texas or Xavier probably should have made the tournament this year. And those are 3 of your bubble teams.
Yeah, I'm curious to see who's going to get left out.
Xavier was 1-9 in quad 1.
Yeah,
they can't pretend to care about this anymore, dude. They gave 2 at-large teams to 2 teams that combined with 2-21 in those games.
Yeah, it's brutal. And Illinois is going to be a darling there. If they face any of those teams, I think they can advance. Kentucky gets the 3 seed. They're going to start in Milwaukee. All right. They're an interesting team for me, Tyson, because are they going to be able to defend at a high enough level? They're going to flat out score. Like, we'll see. You got into these new ones. And then they pulled Troy, which that's a really good mid-major team. I mean, there's another one that there could potentially be an upset there. I think Troy's really good. UCLA gets at the 7 seed. They're going to start in Lexington. Tyson, they're against – they kind of proved you right when we did our Big Ten preview as they face Utah State, a really good Mountain West team who can flat out score. I know some people are not quite sure if they'd get in, again, with the Mountain West stuff. That's an interesting poll. Tennessee, the 2 seed in Lexington. So that's going to mean St. John's is going to be in the Florida region, as we'll get to that. That's something to note there. But Tennessee, the 2 – they're going to start in Lexington. That's a pretty good region for them, of course. And they'll face Wofford. Wow.
They're smoking.
All right.
They're smoking. Tennessee is better than Utah State, UCLA, and Wofford. I like that. The hypothetical Illinois-Kentucky matchup sounds fascinating if Illinois is on.
1 million points in that game, probably.
Yeah. That sounds like a blast. And then Purdue guard play. I mean, Clemson and McNeese both. Like if Purdue's guards are on, that could be really fun for them. But this more so than the South. Like I love this for Houston.
Yeah, and you're a Houston guy. You know, every single year, I don't want to say you're falling for the okie doke. This team feels a little different. They just hit threes at a higher clip.
Yeah,
but
they don't guard as well.
And, you know, maybe they don't need to guard as well and they just need more offense. Maybe that's been their Achilles heel the entire time. I'm with you, though, as we're looking here. I mean, Houston-Gonzaga would be an interesting matchup. I think Houston-Georgia. Houston would probably just pound Georgia. I don't see anything there.
I don't think that'd be a good game.
McNeese High Point, is there a possibility that that's actually the 12-13 matchup we get this year?
No, I don't think so.
You think Purdue's going to beat High Point?
Oh, I think that'll be close, but I don't really believe in McNeese either, and so that's part of it. But you're the bigger Purdue guy than me.
I was, and now I'm kind of off them. You know, because I want to talk myself into things about. Oh, okay. You know, maybe they can do this
when you don't have depth, man. And some of these teams, especially like when we were going over the Big Ten, it's like some of these guys can only go 8 deep, you know, and but it might be okay in a tournament like this where you're not seeing somebody you've seen 3 times already in a season. Yeah,
good point. Like if it's a one-off, yeah. So that's why we're going to dive into again. I keep saying this, folks. We have different people jumping in for the live. We're going to do a dive in later, and we're going to really take a peek at all this stuff and talk about, or at least go into the different matchups in the region, what we can potentially see going to the Elite Eight, go to the Final Four, any upsets we're circling, going through each region a little bit more in depth. This is just our first glance. We're watching it on TV in the background, and we're seeing it as it's unveiled. And so you're seeing it with us, and we're giving you our top of the head reaction to it. Tyson, is there a commercial right now? And again, we don't want to give too much stuff away, kind of like as we're looking at things. I think, to me, the hardest region is the East, where Duke is.
Yeah, I agree. Dude, again, there's so many teams that can score the ball. BYU is interesting because, like you said, they can score 1 million points and they're kind of battle tested in the conference they had to go through. The committee clearly respects the Big 12 with the way that some of these teams are getting seeded, which is interesting. I think there's a little bit more ACC respect that we're seeing right now than maybe we thought.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Louisville 8, I think was a little bit low compared to what I thought. I mean, they lost, like, that was their second loss.
That was the bargain to get North Carolina in the tournament.
True. That's true. Yeah, something had to happen. Unfortunately, it was Louisville. Clemson at 5 is interesting. I wonder how much the Dylan Hunter injury is playing into that. I know the committee said they do factor in injuries, and I'm curious if that's why ultimately Alabama was put in the region with Duke, because of the question marks regarding Grant Nelson. So I'm curious, man. We got the play-ins. I want to see how the rest of this region shakes out here as we kind of finish out with this bracket. We'll see who gets left out, Tyson, of course. But any major shocks to you coming into this?
Not yet. I mean, the North Carolina getting in thing was a little crazy, and then the Texas Xavier matchup as a play-in game was a little crazy. I mean, there's so many teams that are right next to each other, so I'm not going to like jump down the committee's throat for some of these bubble decisions. But all we hear, for the last 20 years is these wins against, like, who you play matters, and beating good teams matters. And then when you have Xavier at 1-9 and North Carolina at, what was it, 1-11 or 1-12?
North Carolina 1-12
in quad one games. Yeah, I mean, these two guys get in the tournament over some of these teams again that we were kind of tongue in cheek before, but it's like, are they really better than the 30-win teams that lose in their conference title game? It's just hard.
It's hard. It is hard to figure out. That's when just the expansion. If you're not going to be equitable to the mid majors, like, that kind of pisses me off a little bit. And so
that's like why we all tune in. That's what you build your brand at some of these programs in here, and like sometimes your brand goes right back down to zero. But your coach, Dusty May, gets to go win a Big Ten title today.
Right. And, Shaka Smart, he becomes famous, all that good stuff. So you got one more
a reason to not include some of them.
That's true.
It was rough for Shaka after that run for a while.
Yeah, I wonder if he wishes he just never went to Texas. I don't know. Things are at Marquette. I guess you can say they're pretty successful. I mean, he's doing all right in the Big East.
Yes. Florida, the final one seed.
In the West, they're going to start in Raleigh. It's kind of interesting for Florida. I think, maybe it's a little disrespectful for the Gators, but, they get the 1 seed. I think they're good. They'll play Norfolk State. That team, Norfolk State used to be like a really good and dominant program in that division. That not quite as dominant as they were. So we'll see. And UConn gets the 8 seed. Now we'll talk about this again. Man, if you're Florida, you got to be like, really, guys? Like, come on. Oh my God. And how about Porter Moser? I mean, we just talked about Loyola Chicago. He got a chance to do something hilarious here too.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think, Florida's probably a little pissed off. It's not the same UConn team. Oklahoma could beat this UConn team. I don't like this Oklahoma team very much so myself.
No, me either. I think that's going to be a tough matchup, especially because, UConn's just so finicky. Memphis gets the 5. They win the American. This team feels like a little bit of a different Memphis team. I do want to dive in a little bit further on them. They'll play Colorado State. That's going to be a fist fight. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's a circle it. If your boss has a project for you, finish it before or after. You got to watch this game.
I agree. That's in Seattle too. So Colorado State, Tyson, I think maybe they'll get the home advantage there.
I think Memphis could travel. This feels like an actual top 20 team. Maryland
with the 4 seed. That's interesting because if everything goes chalk, Florida have to get past them if they're going to advance to the Elite 8. They'll face Grand Canyon. That's boy.
Did we find our 12-13?
I don't know. This Grand Canyon team doesn't feel as good. They weren't number 1 seed, although Grant Foster is really good, but Maryland's good, man. And they got size and everything. Missouri 6. This to me feels like a team that can get beat. We'll see who they face again. About to flip over, but that's in Wichita, Kansas. That's a good poll for Missouri, I think, out here in the West region. If you're going to sit there as the 6th seed,
they can't play defense at home. It doesn't matter.
Tyson, I think I'm circling one here. Missouri and Drake. I love it.
Oh my goodness, Missouri they're either putting up 50 points or they're going to break this Drake team. 30 wins. This Drake team is good.
They're really good. Really good coach too. That's especially on
defense. This is the first real, this is a real clash of styles.
Texas Tech, the 3 seed in the West, against the 14 seed UNC Wilmington. I don't think there's going to be too much trouble there for Texas Tech. It shouldn't, at least. But that's I don't necessarily know if they're comfortable with that.
I mean, it's Texas Tech. I think that they've earned a 3 seed throughout this season. I think they're really good. I think that they're smiling right now.
Kansas got to be pissed that the committee put Missouri in Wichita, and Kansas gets a 7 seed. They got to face Arkansas. Oh boy, Calipari. Back when he was at Kentucky against itself, so they got to reignite that rivalry. Arkansas, Kansas, 2 of the most disappointing teams in the country this year, going to battle out in Providence, Rhode Island. Sorry, Rhode Island.
St. John's won't have to get on a bus for like 31 days. That's what this whole thing broke down to.
Well, and now they're celebrating. That's an interesting poll, though, if you're St. John's. Now, I think they're better than both Kansas and Arkansas, but if they got to face Kansas was the preseason number 1 team.
Yeah, but I think St. John's will break those guys.
Probably. And they get to face Omaha. Sorry, Omaha. I know they're kind of some analytics darlings, Omaha. They can fill it up a little bit. But if St. John's made 14 baskets in a row in the Big East title game, I was like, because I took Creighton plus 6.5, and I was like, oh, they're keeping this in the number. And I was like, it really took the 100th percentile possibility for me to lose this. That was ridiculous.
So we were saying that the East was juiced for Duke. I think Florida's pissed.
Well, let's again, we're going to dive into this a little bit further, folks. But we look at UConn like, oh, they're UConn of the years past. And it's hard not to, right? Because it's Hurley and you got some of the same guys. Florida's going to destroy UConn if they face it. I'm thinking about it.
But, I mean, Memphis and Maryland, like those are 2 really good teams. That's not a ton of fun. And then the bottom half of this thing has some really good teams in it too. If Drake can pick somebody off early in this tournament, start playing with confidence, they could be, your team this year that you look at and go, wow, I can't believe they went on a run.
This was a fun reveal, honestly. I mean, I think there's some good stuff here. I think there's, and we're going to see, again, we'll kind of finish our reaction here. We're going to close out just first reactions. We're looking at the bracket. Again, we're going to go in through all this stuff and really dive in. But who can make a run? Who's most liable to be upset? This kind of stuff off the top of our head that we're looking at this thing. I actually think the committee did a good job. And maybe that's not popular, Tyson. We're pissed about the North Carolina thing, but these matchups are fun on paper.
Every year we do this, and that's, it's fun. It's part of the deal. There are 55 bubble teams. And so some of them, the guys that we wanted to get in aren't going to get in, but we were joking around, but if North Carolina went on a run with the draw that they have and they can just score a bunch of points, they could win 2 games in this tournament. In Texas and Xavier, I'm messing around. They've played high-level teams all season long, and if they can win a couple games, you're not going to be super shocked. And the matchups are a ton of fun. I wish that there was a couple more style clashes in here. It feels like there's a lot of these guys can both score the ball. This will be good TV. But that's what college basketball now, anyways.
Right. First 4 out, as I'm looking here, they're just revealing this. West Virginia, Indiana, Ohio State, Boise State. I don't think anybody's really shedding a tear for that. Now, the net ranking for North Carolina has them at 36th. Whatever. I mean, God, if that team, sure. If that's what we're going to do, they're the highest net ranking. We'll see. But Ohio State, Indiana, they didn't win 20 games. So it's really have a strong argument for it. I think if anything, Boise State maybe can get a little frustrated. They make a run to the Mountain West final. You don't want to leave it, as they say, Tyson, are both fight guys, in the hands of the judges, and that's what happened. We know the committee can get a little finicky. But SEC officially sets the record. 14 teams are in this tournament. So if they don't make at least one team to the Final Four, Tyson, this is a failure.
Oh, brother. I think so, too. I mean, they're in NFC North territory here. It's a historic regular season, and let's see if it matters.
Okay. So that's first 4 out. We'll kind of go through a bunch of different stuff. Let's start diving into some takeaways, and we'll get out of here. We've been going for 45 minutes. Appreciate you guys tuning in and out. And if you're going to watch this later, let us know in the comments what you guys think. I mean, I think this is setting up to be a fun tournament.
I think so too. I don't have it fully in front of me. Once I start filling out the bracket, I'm sure I'll have more fleshed out opinions and different thoughts. But as usual on Selection Sunday, I'm looking at this thing and going, man, if these 1 seeds don't make it to the Final Four.
And that's the way it's been too. You don't necessarily want to pick all chalk, but recently it has been that way. And I think I'm going to close with this, my initial reaction here before we dive in, that the East is the toughest region. I think Duke has the right to be a little bit upset. I think Houston's got a great shot at getting to a Final Four based on how everything is set up in the Midwest. I think spoiler alert here, or somebody who can play spoiler, is Drake. I mean, if you can get past Missouri, Texas Tech is tough, but that's a gettable team. Darling, UC San Diego, that's going to be everybody's circle. I think maybe McNeese gets another run at things. Clemson a little banged up. We'll kind of see. Tyson, Troy, Kentucky, that could be your 14-3 just because Kentucky, their defense is a little susceptible.
It's going to be one of them.
It's going to be one of them. And then how far can St. John's take this thing? I think that's what we're looking at here. And those are, as I'm looking at this bracket, St. John's, if it's Kansas, that's interesting. If it's Arkansas, I think they're pretty safe. If they face a Texas Tech team, that's going to be a banger. And then if they face Florida, boy, I mean, that's something you're going to have to – you can't miss that. I'll put it that way.
It's ridiculous to use net rating to buoy North Carolina and then not use net rating in regard to St. John's. I think St. John's earned a 2 seed, to be clear, but net rating doesn't love them. I think they're 13th in net. And so for the committee to throw them on the 2 line here instead of, the 4 where net would suggest they should be, it's just a little inconsistent is all. Oregon is winning a couple games, I think. That's my initial gut feeling when I looked at this.
You know what I'm going to do, Tyson? I'm going to print out this bracket after this, and I'm just going to I'm going to put gut, and I'm just going to go gut without
I do one of those every year, and it always outperforms the ones that I spend 3 or 4 days sweating over.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious to see. So I'm going to do that because I never really do that because I like to sit back. But no, not this time as we're doing the show. Any kind of closing thoughts? Or we see who's out, North Carolina's in, and again, these are going to be the games that start us off in the first 4. Alabama State, St. Francis, Texas, and Xavier, American, and Mount St. Mary's, and then San Diego State, North Carolina. I don't think anybody really set up for a run, honestly, and we've just made fun of North Carolina. Maybe them, but I don't know.
No, I mean, that's the point of this whole thing, is we're not supposed to see it coming. We're not going to see it coming. Our darlings like UC San Diego is going to get smoked in the first round, and there's going to be some 14 seed from some other side that wins 3 games in here. And so that's why we like this. Is why, March Madness is so much fun. But if you could see the runs coming, brother, you'd be a rich man.
That is true. That is true. All right. Well, any closing thoughts do you have here before we get out?
If the SEC doesn't put at least 3 teams in the Elite Eight, I think it's going to be tough.
That's the bar. Okay, 3 teams from Tyson in the Elite Eight needs to be there for the SEC. I tend to agree with that. You got 14 teams in. You can't make
crazy.
3 of them in the Elite Eight. Come on, now they're supposed to be the best conference of all time. Blah, 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 blah. I think Duke's going to be a Final Four team, Tyson. That's my projection here. We got to see what Cooper Flagg looks like coming back. But as I'm bitching about the East region, you face a Baylor team that I don't think is great. Arizona, if that's the 4 seed that you got to face off with, you beat them before. Sure, they're good, but Duke's got better players. I think they're playing better even than they were at the beginning of the season. And if even they get picked off by an Akron, if Oregon gets picked off by Liberty, those are teams Duke should be able to handle. And so I think they're looking at a spot. And if Alabama's the team they face come out in the Elite Eight, I mean, yeah, they can score a lot of points. Duke's going to just put up 1,000,000 points on that defense. So
I think so.
We'll get into some future stuff, all that good things. If you've been coming in and out, if you're listening to us after, we're excited for this. They got the guys, Bubba Cunningham, the chair, and Keith Gill, the vice chair, talking about this nonsense and explaining why they put in some slap teams as we get ready for March Madness like they do every single year. Appreciate you listening. Follow us on our social, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single thing. We'll be back, like I've been teasing, with actual in-depth breakdowns of each region as we get you started for March Madness. It is here, folks. We are ready to go. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.